Hello and welcome back to SelfiGaming. I again am SelfSustained. Today I'm bringing you another how-to guide. We're going to set up the Paladin for protection, otherwise known as its tank spec. My preferred way of playing the Paladin, by all means. First of all, I could state that the Paladin makes a pretty solid tank, reliable in most any encounter, mainly because of its smooth damage. It has innate abilities to smooth the damage intake that it maintains. Plus, it has strong active mitigations. With the side note of being able to self-heal, as well as throw that heal on other raid members if necessary. Not the greatest heal in the world, obviously, because you're a tank, not a healer, but it is a decent heal nonetheless. It helps in utility. So, first off, as a tank, as a protection paladin, there's a couple of things you'll want to know first and foremost. One is which seal to use. In this case, your 9 times out of 10, the best case would be Seal of Insight, as it increases healing done and gives every time that you melee a chance to heal you directly. Second thing to know while tanking, and very, very important, is Righteous Fury. Now, Righteous Fury is an instant cast that increases your threat generation, meaning it's easier for you to pull aggro and keep aggro. Now, the beauty of Righteous Fury is it's a click it and forget it. Once you've turned it on, unless you turn it off, it stays on, even through death. No worries. So first and foremost, after that, we're going to jump straight into talents. As you can see how I've got mine set up currently. Once again, I'm using Icy Veins for most general setup guide. In the first tier, at level 15, you have the choices of Pursuit of Justice, Speed of Light, and Long Arm of the Law. Now, it's really kind of up to your play style, user's choice, if you will. Myself, I like Long Arm of the Law simply because it allows that each judgment, which is a 5.6 second cooldown damage dealing, holy power generating ability, I'm going to damn near spam, gives me a speed boost. Precisely 45% for 3 seconds. Now, whereas Pursuit of Justice is a passive, and that's great, only if you're going to be pooling holy power and keeping a stack of at least 3. And that way you get 30% rather than the passive 15. Speed of Light is another decent option, as it is an instant cast. It doesn't play off of any other abilities. It's its own, and gives you a nice 70% for 8 seconds. Again, personal preference, I went with Long Arm of the Law. At level 30, you can unlock the second tier, and you've got Blinding Light, Repentance, or Fist of Justice. And once again, in this tier, it's totally up to you and your style of play. I use Fist of Justice. Basically, it replaces Hammer of Justice, and it stuns the target for 6 seconds. As an instant cast, it's a nice little stun, again adding to my overall utility. At level 45, you've got your third tier of talents and their choices: Selfless Healer, Eternal Flame, or Sacred Shield. Now in this case, Icy Vein suggests either Sacred Shield or Eternal Flame. Eternal Flame, as it states, consumes holy power to heal an enemy, or to heal an ally, and it's all dependent on how much holy power it grabs. Sacred Shield is a little more of beginners, if you will. An instant cast that protects the target with a shield of absorption damage absorption. At level 60, you have the choices between Clemency, Hand of Purity, or Unbreakable Spirit. In this case, they're all utility abilities, or increases to your utility overall, And above all, Unbreakable Spirit is a absolute choice. The other two don't stand a chance currently in comparison. The added utility of your Lay on Hands, Divine Shield, and Divine Protection cooldowns being cut in half is phenomenal. At level 75, you have Holy Avenger, Sanctified Wrath, or Divine Purpose. Now in this case, they're all great performance enhancing attributes or talents to their own situations. If you want personal control over the performance boost, you'd rather go with Holy Avenger. Only problem with that is that you gotta use the cooldown. In this case, Holy Avenger is great for off-tanking, whereas you're not the main tank taking damage for the majority of the fight, but the person taunting off of them during specific mechanics of encounters. Holy Avenger is a great talent. If you're strictly looking for added DPS, Sanctified Wrath is a great talent. It's great for AoE aggro, and it allows Holy Wrath to now generate Holy Power, which means all the more Holy Power, that much more, constantly pooling it. But in retrospect, Divine Purpose, basically your Word of Glory and Shield of the Righteous have a 25% chance or a 1 in 4 chance to cause your next Word of Glory or Shield of the Righteous to consume no Holy Power, but cast as if it was a 3 Holy Power cast, being that it's max. 1 in 4 will proc a free one. Great DPS, great aggro and threat maintainer. At level 90, you have the choices of Execution Sentence, which is great for single target DPS, Holy Prism, and Light's Hammer. Light's Hammer is your AoE DPS. Now the beauty of all three of these, is that they are a heal / damage, meaning that if you cast it on allies, it's a heal. If you cast it on enemies, it's damage. Now the beauty of that is Light's Hammer is if you're in a situation where you drop a Light's Hammer, let me see, like, where's that? It is mod 3. Light's Hammer. Nice little area. Enemies get damaged, allies get healed. To me, can't lose with that. Once you hit a level 100, you get your 7th tier, and you have the choices between Empowered Seals, which is an excellent once you've gotten used to tanking and you're looking for a little more challenge in your rotation, as it gives you the opportunity to decide, do you want the health regen buff? Do you want the haste buff? Do you want both? So if you're in a situation where you're main tanking or shortly thereafter off tanking, instead of having to switch back and forth between talents, you can choose Empowered Seals, and it's just a matter of how you twist your seals. Twisting your seals is the idea that you turn one seal on. In this case, let's start with the Judgment or Seal of Insight, meaning once you have Seal of Insight on and you judge a mob, and then switch to Seal of Righteousness, you will have the Judgment of Insight still buffed on you for the next 21 seconds, while having the Seal of Righteousness judge yet another character to gain increased haste of 20% for the next 20 seconds, switch back to the Seal of Insight, and so on and so forth. Again, makes it a little more advanced. But at the moment, I've just hit level 100, so we're going to try and go the, again, beginner route. Holy Shield is a passive that increases your block by 15%, allows you to block spells in addition to physical damage, and when you block, you deal damage to your attacker. Seraphim, the third option there, Basically, you want to maintain the buff from this 100% uptime by using 5 holy power as much as possible. It's going to be your highest DPS maker, but in my case, tanking, I'm more interested in survivability. So maintaining that smooth damage intake is top priority for myself. Now, moving on to glyphs. As a protection tank, there's no mandatory glyphs. There's no more than recommended glyphs even. But there are several at your advantage. And as you can see, for instance, we'll take this one as an example. Consecrator. I'm currently using Glyph of the Consecrator, which means that my consecration will move with me. So if I cast that and move around, you will see that it's not staying where I was at, but it is actually staying centered around my feet. Great for picking up adds along the way. Or I could take Glyph of the Consecration, which now would allow me to choose where in the area up to 25 yards away that I wanted to drop Consecration. So there are several, like Dazing Shield. I'm using Dazing Shield, that when my Avenger Shield hits, and as it reads, hits up to 4 additional enemies to my target, it will also daze those targets for 10 seconds, stunning them. I also use Glyph of Divine Protection, which reduces the physical damage reduction by 20% and replaces it with a 20% magic damage reduction. Gives you a little bit more utility by the idea that you can fight more than just other melees. And once again, the minors are cosmetic and therefore not that big a deal. You can choose what you like. I will note that the Glyph of Righteous Retreat brings us back to the days of the Bubble Hearth. Essentially, drop your Divine Shield so nobody can touch you, and your Hearthstone is now twice as fast, so that you can hearth back home and get out of dodge. Bye-bye. Okay. Now that I've gotten through that, when it comes to tanking, there's not really much of a rotation as there is a priority list. So with a Paladin's protection tanking, it's a matter of generating holy power and spending holy power. Now you've got a few things to generate holy power, and you've only got a couple of things to spend it. Most generally you will spend it by Shield of the Righteous. Other than Shield of the Righteous, you might use your heal, Word of Glory. Word of Glory will consume not only 3 holy power, but anywhere up to 3. So you can consume it with 1 holy power, 2 holy power, or 3. And it will heal accordingly, whereas 3 holy power will heal for 11,691, it says. Shield of the Righteous is one of your main aggro abilities, so you'll be just about spamming that every time you've got 3 or 4 holy power. To maintain aggro, it slams the target, causing a lot of damage, reducing your physical damage, which is the biggest reason for it. Reduces your physical damage intake by 25% for 3 seconds, and causing Bastion of Glory. Bastion of Glory increases the strength of Word of Glory when used to heal yourself by 13%, and Bastion of Glory will stack up to 5 times, meaning up to 65% increased strength of your Word of Glory on a self-heal. So you'll use Shield of Righteous quite often compared to Word of Glory. Now, as far as generating holy power, the priority list is as thus. Crusader Strike is your main You're going to hit it on cooldown. It's got a 4.24 second cooldown, and it is your strongest aggro melee. Second is your judgment. Judgment is it doesn't matter if it's melee or it has up to 30-yard range. It does damage and generates holy power, but you have to have your seal on to use a judgment. And you can use that every just over 5.5 seconds. You'll be spamming that quite often as well. After that is Holy Wrath. Holy Wrath is a talent, as we discussed before. Well, let me rephrase that. Holy Wrath can be buffed by the talent Sanctified Wrath. If you have chosen Sanctified Wrath in your talent tree, then Holy Wrath becomes next important to your Judgment and Crusader Strike. If you didn't, like myself, it's not as important, but it's a nice ability for AoE damage, so it's not something you want to take out of your rotation. Moving on, your Avenger's Shield. If your Crusader Strike is on cooldown, your Judgment is on cooldown, and you did not talent for Sanctified Wrath, Avenger's Shield, whether or not you have the Grand Crusader proc, which is this right here, it doesn't matter if you have it or not. Avenger's Shield is your next in line. Of course, if that's on, you have the ability to hit it even sooner in priority. But that's okay. Next in priority is your tier 6. Depending on which one you chose, maybe one of these three. Again, so me, it's Light's Hammer. Again, for the added AoE abilities. It's a great damage / heal. Beyond that, you've got Hammer of Wrath. Does quite a bit of damage, but it's only usable on enemies that have 20% or less of their health. Meaning you won't use that until you're unless on a boss, until you're pretty close to they're dead. You might get 1 or 2 on, unless it's a high health point rare, elite, or boss. Then you'll actually have a few abilities to drop that. Last but not least is Consecration. Consecration is, like I showed earlier, it's an area of effect. Does damage over amount of time to anybody who's in that area. Any enemy that is in that area. And then, of course, if, like myself, did not talent for Sanctified Wrath, you don't want to forget Holy Wrath. It's still a nice AoE. Those are things that, even when you're in single target, even the AoE abilities do damage to that single target. So just to keep yourself busy between keeping everything else off cooldown, if you have space or time, those are the other abilities you'll drop in accordingly. Now, if you're in a situation where you do have a group and you are pulling several at a time and you need your AoE abilities first and foremost, if you have anywhere up to 3 targets, first of all, you won't even have to worry about it. Just continue with your single target priority list. Beyond that, at 3 or more, everything stays the same except whenever Crusader Strike is top of the list in single target, Hammer of the Righteous is your AoE version, if you will, and becomes top priority. In AoE mode, if you will, Avenger's Shield with Crusader, or Grand Crusader, becomes a very high priority. You will want to hit that as often as possible. And of course, Consecration, the big AoE that follows you in this case, takes a little higher, and it jumps over your tier 6, or for me, Light's Hammer, in the priority list. So I would click Consecration before Light's Hammer, rather than after. Again, Very basic priority list. There's a lot more to tanking than just knowing the priority list. It's really more a feel for the encounter, each boss, how your group is holding together, how well your healer is geared and knows their role, and how well you are at active mitigation. You have quite a bit of active mitigation as a protection paladin. And by that I mean, like I'd mentioned earlier, Shield of the Righteous. Every time you hit that, it's going to reduce physical damage taken by 25%. You want to try and keep that up at all times. Word of Glory is a heal, like I'd mentioned. If necessary, it's helpful to the healer if you can take some of that off his shoulders. You also have some cooldowns. You have Guardian the Kings, which is Guardian of Ancient Kings on a 3-minute cooldown. Reduces damage taken by 50% for 8 seconds. You have Ardent Defender, which is also on a 3-minute cooldown and reduces damage taken by 20% for 10 seconds. The next attack that would otherwise kill you will heal you for 12% of your maximum health. You also have Divine Protection on a 30-second cooldown that reduces magical damage because I've glyphed it by 20% and physical damage by 20%. Then you have Divine Shield. There it is. 2.5-minute cooldown, protects you from all damage and spells for 8 seconds, reduces all damage you deal by 50%. So you use that in more of an emergency situation. It also causes forbearance for 30 seconds, which means that you can't use Divine Shield again until forbearance is gone. And last but not least, probably the greatest heal in all the game, Lay on Hands. Horrible cooldown time. I've glyphed it and it's still 5 minutes. It was 10. But it heals a friendly target, myself or any other party member, equal to my maximum health. And as a tank, depending on the gear rating, and if I'm in a similar group that's rated like myself, I should have the most health of anybody in the group, which means Lay on Hands is an instant full health to anybody in the group. Excellent lifesaver when timed correctly. Okay, other than talents, glyphs, priority, and cooldowns, knowing your Righteous Fury, as I'd mentioned earlier, that does your threat generation increase bonus, your seal, throw down a blessing. I've neglected the blessings, I apologize. You have 2 blessings. You can go Blessing of Kings or Blessing of Might. Might increases mastery. Kings increases strength, agility, and intellect. In this case, you're only going to use strength by 5%. But those are group blessings, so when you hit yourself with it, everybody in your party will also get it. 9 times out of 10 in group, unless there is someone else who can provide the buff, Blessing of Kings is the way to go. If somebody else can provide the buff, then you'll switch to Blessing of Might. That said, last but not least, you've got a couple other little utility abilities. You have Reckoning, which is your taunt. If there's ever a situation where, well, maybe the damage dealer has better gear than you and he's pulling aggro off of you simply because he's doing more damage. Doing way, way more damage. Or, more than likely, you forgot to turn on Righteous Fury and somebody else hit somebody first so they pulled aggro. Throw down a Reckoning. It's instant cast, takes 8 seconds to hit it again, and it taunts that target to attack you and only you for the next 3 seconds, at which point you have 3 seconds to build your threat to maintain that. You also have Fist of Justice, as I had mentioned in the talent tree, which will stun the target for 6 seconds. great for interrupting spellcast even. And you also have Rebuke, which is in fact your spellcast interrupt. Prevents any spell in whichever school that it interrupted from being cast again by that target for 4 seconds. I do believe that that covers just about everything there is to knowing how to set up your Paladin to becoming, or how to start learning how to roll a tank. I do appreciate you stopping by, and I appreciate any comments and likes. I'd also suggest maybe checking out some of my other videos. I have other guide videos as well as some more active dungeons and let's plays. I do plan on adding more content regularly. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you all again. See you soon.